Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Talk ABM with me, Declan Mulkeen, CMO of account-based marketing agency Strategic ABM. ABM is one of the hottest B2B strategies right now, helping companies to win, grow and retain their most important accounts. This podcast allows me to spend some time talking to account-based marketing leaders about their ABM programs and share their insights with other B2B marketers, wherever you are on your ABM journey. Today I'm joined by Celia Slack, who's the EMEA Pursuit Marketing Lead at ServiceNow. Celia, thanks so much for joining us today.
Lovely to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we've been, tagging each other back and forth for a while now, trying to organise this. So I'm really grateful for you that you found the time. So just a couple of things, really, and one thing for the audience. I interviewed one of your colleagues, actually, Elise Miller. She was actually episode 31 of Let's Talk ABM. That was back in 2021. So if you haven't watched that, please do. And this will be an interesting continuation of that conversation, really, because obviously ServiceNow has been paving the way in terms of ABM, and is definitely seen as one of the kind of major proponents of ABM. So please do look back on that episode. And I think actually, Celia, you work very closely with Elise. Is that right?
I do. She's my boss, and she's fantastic. I mean, I don't have to just say that she is. She's absolutely brilliant. She's done a fantastic job leading the EMEA strategy for ABM at ServiceNow in partnership with our global team. So it's been an absolute joy working with her, learning from her. So I'm very happy to be part of the next generation of the podcast, walking in the steps of giants.
Fantastic. Well, on that point, actually, as I mentioned earlier, we were tagging each other for some time to arrange this. And I think at the time you had an ABM account-based marketing role. And now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're now in a pursuit marketing role. So first of all, congratulations on that change. Could you talk us a little bit about that in terms of what does that actually mean? Because it may not be a familiar term for everybody, a pursuit marketing lead, and perhaps then the relationship with account-based marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we really, we are, as you said, very lucky at ServiceNow to have an incredible investment behind the ABM program. But, because of that, because of some of the successes we've been having, demand is just growing, and our biggest customers are growing and growing, very fortunately for ServiceNow. But, we needed to figure out a way to be able to scale some of the work that we do to reach more accounts and just deliver more value. So pursuit marketing is really just the way that we see it, at least internally, is a branch of ABM. So it uses all of the ABM, tenets, practices. But if we think of ABM as a marathon, we think of pursuit as a sprint, essentially. So we align ourselves to a challenge or an opportunity. So that might be a deal, but it might be some other different scenarios that we look at. It doesn't always have to be deal-based marketing, but an opportunity within an account rather than being aligned to that account for a year or 18 months, 2 years. But we're still part of the ABM team, and I still also do cover some ABM accounts as well.
So you also mentioned deal-based marketing, which is a term that some other people mention as well. So it's the case that maybe somebody in the account team raises their hand and says, we've got an opportunity here we really could do with your help. It's a timed opportunity. Come in and help us. Is that what kind of happens?
Yes, one of the ways it happens. We do try and be as proactive as possible for our own sanity and for planning purposes. So we try and work with sales leadership and the sales teams to identify where some of these opportunities might arise through the year. But yeah, absolutely. It is also having that agile resource because, as I'm sure many of the listeners will know, people are always putting their hands up for help. And, up until last year, it was weekend work, evening work. We all want to help each other where we can, but it was always in addition to our day job. So by defining the practice within ServiceNow, and then, we're able to not only offer more support, but also measure it correctly, make sure we're set up for success from the start. Still going to be weekend and evening work sometimes, but it is, it's exactly that. So you never know when something really short term is going to come up, but also it might be that we know, a renewal's coming up, or there's an M&A in the account and there's a risk of a downsell or whatever it might be. So it's definitely a number of different things.
Gotcha. Well, let's spend the next half an hour talking a little bit about account-based marketing, ABM, and PBM. Would that be the right acronym? For PBM, which is a new one as well. So let's kick off a little bit. I mean, obviously, from my previous conversations with your colleague and friend Elise, she explained to me a lot about the exponential growth that you have been experiencing there at ServiceNow. So tell me, what part has ABM played in that growth or in supporting that growth?
I think we really live our values here at ServiceNow. I know that, possibly everyone says that, but it's one of the things that I've absolutely loved since joining ServiceNow is we live our values. And while the customer is one of our values, ServiceNow genuinely puts the heart at the customer of everything that they do or we do. And that means that, it makes the role of ABM really clear. I mean, that's obviously the heart of ABM as well. So whilst we've really focused on our largest customers and working with those customers, learning from them as well, a lot of the newer products that we build are in partnership with our partners, learning from what they need. And so having ABM involved to really support building that strategic relationship with those partners has really fed into that growth, I think.
And if we talk a little bit about the last 5 years or so, I think that's how long the ABM program has been around for approximately. I think you've gone from a team of 1 to a team of about 20 in that time. What would you say, and that's, of all the conversations I had with many ABM practitioners, that's a sizable team for an account-based marketing practice. What would you say separates ServiceNow's approach to account-based marketing from perhaps other companies and other approaches?
I can't speak for every company, but I think that the fact that we had really, really strong buy-in from the top, from the start, really helped. I think part of the challenges with ABM, as we all know, it's very labor intensive, it's resource heavy, it's budget heavy. And if you don't have that buy-in from the top to really support it and know that it's a long-term program, it's very easy to fail and therefore, try it for a couple of months and think, oh, it doesn't work, and therefore never build the team from there. So I think a combination of early successes, we started with a very, very strong leader here that was able to really deliver success. And so to prove those tangible results and get the buy-in from senior leadership, both on the sales and the marketing side as well, I think is really what has helped us to build this incredible team. And I think, that alignment between sales and marketing throughout the whole way has really been what has helped us grow and grow, because there's all that demand is coming. They understand that we're partners to them. And so we've been really fortunate to get a lot more resources put behind us as well.
Well, that's great, Tina. I think it's an important message for anybody listening, really, that you do really need that support from the top, because obviously ABM's different. It's a mindset. It's a change. It takes time. It requires patience, and it requires clearly C-suite support in order to nurture and allow that kind of time and space for it to work. Right? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, ABM is not going to deliver results, in quarter. Let's say when you're starting an ABM program, you have to have that understanding that things are coming and results are coming. But just like the largest deals take a long, long time to put together, so do the ABM results sometimes. So, and it's tough. It's really tough, particularly for growing businesses. Where they do need quarter-on-quarter results. To ask. That's a big question to ask someone and to have that belief in them. So, understandably, it doesn't work for everywhere because priorities might change. But as I say, we've been really fortunate to have that understanding. And now we're an established team. We're just building on that and hopefully going from strength to strength.
And would you say, Celia, that we have, when we have companies who come to us and ask us for help with account-based marketing, one of the questions that we probe them with is what do they have already established in terms of their existing go-to-market strategy? And one of the kind of alarm bells for us is they don't have a solid go-to-market, then obviously ABM is not a silver bullet. So I'm guessing that's the case also at ServiceNow, is you've got a very strong go-to-market strategy, demand, and a whole host of other marketing activities. And ABM is just one more that is almost an addition. It's not a substitution, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, and I wasn't here when the start of the program happened, so I'm speaking from third-hand understanding, but we as a ServiceNow, as you said, we've been growing exponentially as well, and that also means our marketing function has been growing exponentially. And when ABM started here at ServiceNow, I think it's fair to say that yes, we had very strong direction, and we had a very strong go-to-market function, but it was also still growing, and it also still had gaps as well that I think have filled. So actually, as you say, it's one string to a bow of many. So you do need certain elements in place, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't say don't do ABM just because you don't have the perfect, demand marketing function just yet. But yes, it's not going to be. You can't just remove any focus on demand marketing and go straight to ABM. I think that's going to be a challenge. So if you're trying to balance a budget and you only have a certain amount, as you say, get the fundamentals right, get that really strong go-to-market strategy ready, and maybe just trial one account if you're trying to dip your toe in ABM. And I think, as I say, as ABM has been growing as a function, so has our marketing. So I think some of the work we've done is fed back into, other teams. And likewise, we very much feel we're very much a core part of a multi-function marketing team here. So yeah, that's not quite a straight answer. So yeah, don't wait for everything to be perfect, but definitely wait to have something.
That's very, very good advice, I think, to be fair, Celia. So one thing that we spoke about previously, and I think I made lots of copious notes when we were chatting, you said that with every single account that you work with, you customize the experience, and you customize it on a whole range of different issues, whether it's what's happening within the account, what is happening within the account, what's the goal of the account, what's the experience that they're having with your company. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit more, or maybe perhaps share an example of how that actually works in practice, that kind of level of customization?
Yeah, and it's both it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, obviously, when you are customizing things so much, it limits the reusability and scalability. Although we are identifying quite a number of patterns at the moment now, which is really helpful. But I think that really, particularly when it comes to one-to-one ABM, I think it goes beyond account insights in terms of what's publicly available or what we know about the business, and it has to go down to that personal level. And I don't mean necessarily personal as in one human being, but personalizing what's happening in that account. So whilst I can't share any sort of specific examples, we definitely have a different approach based on, sometimes we call them challenges or opportunities. So, I think the end goal of our one-to-one accounts, we are obviously, as everyone is, focusing on our largest enterprise customers. We want them to see us as a strategic partner. That's going to be the end goal for all of our ABM work. But how we get there is really where those insights feed into how we change up the journey, because it might be that they really understand the power of the platform. They really get what we can do, but there's a relationship challenge there that we need to be really cognizant of it. So actually, is the ABM that we're doing supporting a shift in the relationship so that we can unleash, the power of the platform within the customer? Whereas for other customers, they may still see us as an IT ticketing tool, and it's actually more of an education piece. And how do we reach the specific stakeholders, and how do we broaden the reach within different BUs? So there are a couple of different scenarios that we come up with a lot, but I think that's really where we sort of feed into those insights. So yes, we absolutely have to understand the industry. We have to understand what's going on with the account as a whole, what their priorities are, but we really also have to understand where do we sit with them, what is their knowledge of us, and how do we define our purpose as an ABM function for the year that we might be going into. And I think that, that extra layer is absolutely key, because, if the relationship isn't there and that's what we need to nurture, then you can bang on about the power of the platform and you can create some wonderful ways to reach people, but they have to want to hear us as well. So I think that's sort of does that answer the question?
It does. I think so. Interesting. You said at the beginning there, you kind of had put the caveat saying that, by customizing for every account, then you don't necessarily have the ability to scale everything, but you're finding certain patterns, which I think is really interesting, that you can actually pick out now patterns. And I'm guessing maybe some potential, maybe I've got a question for you potentially later about AI. And it may well be that you might be able to use AI to look for some of these patterns as well in your customized approach to customers, right? Let's talk about something that just came into my head then when you were talking, was with regard to how you work with your sales team. Because obviously sales are very good at customizing, they're very good at personalizing, they're very good at getting under the skin of the customer. And I believe that the way that you're positioned there, the ABM team, you're positioned as being part of that kind of strategic sales team. So how's that positioning? How's that positioning kind of helped you get that key alignment? And do you have any recommendations for the audience who are always struggling to get that sales marketing alignment?
Yeah, I think it's, again, that's a sort of a two-way street, but I think that's really fundamental to the keys of your success. And I think that one is we're an established team now, and we do have that senior leadership buy-in. So having that understanding at the senior level is really important. But also in every communication that we put out and every interaction that we have with our sales teams, that's how we position ourselves. We tell them who we are essentially. So when we get on, when we get onto a call with them, whether it's an assessment call or an onboarding call, we make really, really clear about how much of a partnership this is and how we're working together, the time investment that's needed on their side as well. They can't just ask for things and expect us to go away and do things. It's not good. That's not how it's going to, ABM just doesn't work like that. So I think it's really important. Yes, okay, to have buy-in, but to establish it yourself, lead with confidence. I think any ABM practitioner out there internally, sometimes, thinks that sales have this, I don't know, magic meetings or conversations that we don't know about. We're all working towards the same goal of making money for whatever company we're in. And so, the more that we can do that together, the better. So I think it's, really showing up and having that confidence to position yourselves out. And also, we are very fortunate here that we have the support to, move an account off the program if that collaboration part isn't there. If there are a lot of accounts that want to work with us, and I'm sure there are a lot of accounts in other, other companies that would love ABM and love the support and be ready to have that collaborative approach. It doesn't happen very often here, I have to say. I think most of our teams here really understand the value, but having the power to say no, I think, is really important as well. And having some metrics behind you as well, some proof points if you really need it, particularly as you're establishing a program. Get one champion who you've worked with who you think is fantastic, and have them get in touch with their colleagues or present at a sales all hands. That's really, really key as well. If you're really struggling to be seen like that, I'm sure there's going to be one person that you can call on to really support and fight your cause as well. But I think it does come down to how you position yourself.
No, I think it's a good point there, Celia, and I think it reminds me of another interview with Catherine Nemo at HP, and she went to great lengths to explain their account selection process. And one of the parts of their account selection process is the openness of the account teams and the account director to actually be part of the program and to actually help to make the program a success. And therefore they decide based on that level of engagement from their account directors whether that account or those accounts will form part of the ABM program. So it kind of shows you that it has to be a kind of a symbiotic relationship, right? And both parties have to really want it in order for it to be a success. One thing as well you were saying earlier, which made me want to ask you a question around measurement. Now, I know that you use the 3 R's method there of measurement, reputation, relationships, and revenue. But I think you've added a 4th R to that, right? What's the 4th?
What's the 4th? Why 3 when you can have 4? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What's the 4th? What's the 4th R?
4th R is retention.
Retention.
And I think won't come as a surprise to some people, but for others, I think retention is really key. And actually, really, when you think about it, the other 3 do feed into the 4th as well. If you're not scoring on any of the other 3, you're not going to retain customers as well. But I think that's something that we really, really want to focus on as well. And I think I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about understanding the challenges of the account. Sometimes the retention is the challenge. I think we all know it's a lot cheaper to keep a customer than it is to get a new customer. So we really want to make sure that, particularly for those that we have the biggest opportunities with, that we focus on that retention as well.
And I mean, for a lot of people, I know that measurement is a really difficult part of ABM. Obviously, some platforms, some ABM platforms tell you they can report on certain elements of your ABM program, but we know there's a lot of manual reporting going on, and I know a lot of the conversations I have with people from very sizable companies that they do an awful lot of manual work to try to bring together the different elements. What's your take on reporting? How would you score yourselves on how well you are at reporting, and where do you think the gaps are for people?
Reporting we're always working, I think, on reporting. And I think, as you say, at the moment, it is still a bit manual. We've set up some really, really important, not important, but really useful dashboards now. And, as technology advances, internally in terms of what we use and also how we really define our success advances, we're able to lean on those platforms more. But I think, particularly with ABM, when we are talking about relationships, sometimes it still does have to be that manual way. So we are finding new ways of tagging, in our CRM system, not just using marketing tools, but also in the sales tools to see if we can support that. And we have some more sort of manual, semi-manual, semi-automated processes internally whereby we can make notes of different things. We also have created a scoring model where we are comparing us against cohorts of non-ABM accounts. So I think that's been really useful, particularly in some of the key metrics where the metrics might look fantastic, but actually if you're not comparing them to anything, they don't mean anything. So that's been a really, really strong advance that we've been working on thoroughly. But with ABM, yeah, I can't necessarily see a way yet that it's not that you're going to be able to fully remove that manual process. I think it's really important when you're doing that, when you're reporting back to whatever kind of leadership it is, again, to just manage expectations and set the scene, and actually really look at what your goals of the ABM account are. So if the ABM program was to get in front of the CEO, and you got in front of the CEO, or you had a reply from, we had one instance where we had no relationship with the CEO, and we, through not just the ABM work, but through multiple channels, we managed to reach them so much so that they emailed our AE and said, where is the DM that we had actually sent to their office? From nothing, that email saying, where is it? I want a meeting. That's the success of your program, but it's very difficult to sort of track that on a board.
Yeah, and that anecdote you just shared is similar to some of the anecdotes that Rhiannon Blackwell from PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, also shared, that sometimes it's those anecdotes really that can be even more powerful than the numbers themselves. And the fact that you're trying to get to reach a CEO, a CFO, a CMO, whoever it is, and who's the key person to reach, that you can actually share those anecdotes or those stories. So often the story is more important than the actual numbers themselves. Talking about numbers, when we were chatting before, and I was asking you about what some of your beefs are with account-based marketing and what's happening in the market, one of your beefs, so to speak, was one-to-many ABM. And yeah. I think, if I can remember correctly, I think what you said to me was that you didn't consider one-to-many ABM to really be ABM, and I think you consider it to be more industry marketing. So tell me a little bit more about that kind of, what kind of gets on your nerves, so to speak.
Yeah, I love how you phrase that, and I just want to preface this part with all opinions are speakers' own, not ServiceNow's. But look, I think maybe I'm a bit of a purist at heart, but I think there's a huge amount of value, obviously, in industry marketing. Of course, there is. Just when I think about ABM, it's really about that deep personalization, and I really struggle to see that balance between that level of deep personalization and one-to-many approach, which you can still have a smaller cohort. You don't have to be communicating to the whole industry. You can still narrow down who you're talking to. But I think, why not have an incredibly strong industry marketing program that does that? I don't think you have to call it ABM, and I personally, I don't see slapping on a logo as ABM. So that's sort of there could be personalization at scale, but I personally view that as something slightly different to when you're thinking about how do you really go deep into an account and speak to them as a market of one or perhaps a few.
And so is it the case at ServiceNow that the majority of your work is one-to-one and one-to-few? Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we have a fantastic industry marketing team that does an incredible job feeding into the programs that we then have in the one-to-few space and the one-to-one space. So yeah, that's how we define it here.
Well, that's actually an interesting point. Is that the case that the other teams and the other marketing initiatives, they may well feed an account into your program because of X, Y, Z? Not in terms of, they wouldn't, I suppose, wouldn't identify an account saying, oh, all these marketing signs are pointed towards this being a good ABM account. We still select our accounts through conversations with sales, and also looking at the metrics. I mean, just as you mentioned before, to take it back, opportunity, achievability, and collaboration, the sort of stand three metrics. But what we absolutely try and do, and we're trying to do more and more of in a more streamlined way, is make sure that whatever our counterparts in field or industry or whatever other
part of marketing are feeding into what we do, and equally we're feeding back into what they're doing. I think it's really important to understand that it's not a separate marketing program. We're really working together in full collaboration, which is not always easy. There's a lot of us, there's a lot of people around the globe doing different things, but we need to be making sure that we're making the best use of all of the fantastic work they're doing, particularly when you have things like knowledge, which is, I don't know if it's coming up when we're recording this. It might have been done and dusted by the time this goes out. But how are we maximizing the value of all the incredible work they're doing and building it into our ABM programs? And likewise, have there been any learnings that we've had, or anything that we've created, or any patterns that we are seeing that might feed back into some of the work that they're doing? One of them, I can think of an example, is some of the incredible work that we're doing around megatrends, and that that's been start off as possibly getting some ideas of what we're seeing, but really taken and run with and doing incredible, performing incredibly and getting incredible results from the field team. So yeah, I wouldn't say that marketing, the field team are feeding in terms of the accounts that we're looking after. Having said that, they are often much closer to more of the stakeholders than we are. We tend to be, when we select our accounts, we tend to work with those A's and the sales leadership, but we have, the industry partners that really have that relationship with all of the A's and industry. So they definitely provide ears on the ground just as we do.
I think it's a great answer, and a great lead into the next question that I had for you, actually, because you mentioned something called mega trends. And obviously one of the biggest trends at the moment, one of the biggest talking points at the moment, obviously, is artificial intelligence and Gen AI. And I know that talking to other guests on the show, a lot of people are looking at it, a lot of people are experimenting, a lot of people are doing some interesting things. Is there anything that you personally or ServiceNow can share about Gen AI and what you're doing in account-based marketing or even pursuit-based marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think as many people, we're still learning. And I think we're trying to use it as much as possible to, particularly with Pursuit, to speed things up. We are trying to run a marathon at sprint pace when we're dealing with Pursuit, but it still needs that human intervention, that human touch. So there are some, as I think, there are tools out there. There's some fantastic creative work that can be done with Gen AI, but equally, they're using Gen AI to give us a kickstart on some account insights, maybe a kickstart on how we communicate, to different people or with different, values. I think it's a great starting off point. It gets us in a really good position to sort of hit the ground at speed. But as always, it still needs that human element to come in and sense check everything and make sure that the direction is right. So obviously prompting is really important. Are we, have we got someone who can, or are we working with a team that knows how to prompt really well? I think curiosity is really key with all of AI. I think it's never take the first answer it gives you. Keep prompting it. Keep digging. Keep delving. Just see what it comes back with, and then take it with a grain of salt and sense check it as well. But in terms of innovation, I think actually our broader marketing team are doing some incredible innovative things with AI. But I don't think we have some magic silver bullet that other people are perhaps trying already.
That's good to hear. And I think the word that's kind of coming out from what you've just said is caution.
Yeah.
Is exploit it, use it, but be a little bit cautious. Yeah. And I think that's fair to say in my own use of it as well. I'm going to ask you one question actually about PBM, pursuit-based marketing, just to help the audience understand it a bit more, because not everyone's familiar with it. Mm-hmm. How would you summarize what it is? How would you summarize what it is and what it does in an organization?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think we've talked about a few different points of definition. I think it shouldn't necessarily be thought of as different or separate to ABM. So if you understand what ABM is, you understand what PBM is. But it was really about why we did it, and the reason why we did it is we are, when we are able to focus at a one-to-one level, each practitioner has a limited amount of accounts that they can cover, and we want to make sure we are that strategic partner. So Pursuit is really about identifying those opportunities. So we're still learning, we're still gathering data. This is the first time it's been offered as a service at ServiceNow, sort of building the plane as we fly it. But it's about trying to define some of those key opportunities that Pursuit can make a difference. And yeah, so that doesn't really define Pursuit for you. I'll give you a few examples. So it could be deal-based opportunities. So there's a big deal coming up, and we need the Tiger team involved. We need every person and their dog on the field. And that's where we would get involved as well, obviously to help sort of up-level that message and get it to a strategic point. But it could be that it's more of an opportunity for reach within the account. But there could be a challenge involved. So perhaps something's happened in the account and we are, I can give a sort of a tentative example of there was just a relationship challenge. There was a change in leadership and someone was coming in with a negative view of ServiceNow. And I was coming in at a key point in time, not necessarily to close a deal, but to make sure that we retained that account and grew that account. So actually, how do we come in and support that, nurturing that relationship, and then let the account team get on with the things that the account team do well. So what it means is by identifying it around opportunities like that or challenges like that, it means that we can come in for a shorter period of time, which means that then we can cover more accounts and more opportunities throughout the year. So we've been able to expand. I'm covering up to, or perhaps even more than 20 opportunities, so perhaps 20 different accounts throughout the year versus perhaps 5 that you would be able to do on a one-to-one basis. But I think that one of the reasons we've been able to do it here at ServiceNow is that we have people in-house that have lots of ABM experience. You can obviously outsource it as well, but it's really that strategic piece that you need to be able to cover, understanding the tenets of ABM, understanding what the process is, and being able to do it as quickly as possible to get deep into that account and then identify what the challenge is and work on it. And then, as I say, hopefully let the account team do what they do. That we have fantastic account teams here as well. So it's just a little booster, I would maybe call it.
Booster. I was thinking kind of more graphic in like Delta Team or the Navy SEALs or the SAS. You kind of get in there. Yeah. You've got the best equipment. You get in, you get the job done, and you get out. It sounds like a little bit to me. So just to finish off with some rapid fire questions, I've got 4 rapid fire questions for you. ABM learning. What has been your greatest ABM learning, Celia, over the last years that you've been doing this?
Very good question. Short answer, collaboration is key. I really do think it comes down to that. If you don't have the buy-in from the account, and by the way, you can work on that. We've definitely had periods where that has absolutely shifted, that relationship shifted. But if you can't see that on the horizon, cut your losses. There'll be someone else who wants your support.
Good answer. The hardest part of ABM?
I think the hardest part is ceding, maybe it's for me, ceding control. We can do everything that we possibly can, but we aren't the sales team. We are part of the marketing team. And so, we do have to hand over and put that trust. And also, sometimes the hardest part is not, we share losses with the account teams as well. Sometimes something happens in the account and the account team have done everything they possibly can. We've done everything we can. The whole of ServiceNow has done everything they possibly can, and it doesn't hit. And it's tough.
Yeah, the losses can be very, very hard to swallow, really, because you put an awful lot of time into it. The greatest misconception about ABM?
That we can just wave a wand and fix everything. It is not a magic bullet. It has to have, as you say, there has to be a full marketing suite there. We don't work in isolation, and we can't fix everything as well. So. Yeah.
Good answer. Finally, we're recording this on a Tuesday, but let's just imagine it was a Friday evening. You've had a really tough week there. You're about to close the laptop down, have a glass of whatever your favorite tipple is, and you get a phone call from a friend saying, "Hey, Celia, you won't believe it, but I've got to do a presentation on Monday morning to the CEO. He wants me, or he or she wants me to launch an ABM strategy." And that person says, that friend says to you, "What's that one thing I must include in the presentation?" What would be that one thing you recommend that they include?
That it's going to take time. Set expectations from the start. I think that's really what, in life anyway, but just in general, set expectations. Obviously sell ABM, sell, that it's a great thing, but set those expectations, because, I think sometimes we do sell it as a magic bullet, and then if there's a disappointment, it's likely to go away. Whereas if there's that understanding, so set expectations from the start.
I think that's a very great answer. Great way to finish off. Celia, thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing your ABM journey, and I wish you and the team there at ServiceNow every successful future.
Oh, it's been great talking to you. I'm so glad we finally got it in the diary, and thank you so much for having me on the program.
If you enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk ABM, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Feel free to rate and review this podcast. Thanks so much for listening.